All right, well, thank you everyone for coming. My name is Michael Civitello, and I'm here from the organization as a volunteer from Penny for NASA. And today we're going to be talking about the impact that NASA's budgets had on our culture and how we can fix it. Now, before I kind of get into the history and where we've been and where we're going, how many people here, by a show of hands, were a fellow dork and want to go to space camp? Yes, 3 people. Very cool. All right, well, here's the sad reality. Space camp actually closed in 2002 after about 15 years of running and 50,000 kids attended. So, a little sad reality there. How did we get there? I'll tell you how we got there. So 1960, we're at war, the Cold War with the Soviets, right? And America feared Russia. We were in absolute fear. But what they did, the Russians were launched the first satellite into space. It was called Sputnik, which also meant fellow traveler, and they used a rocket to get it up there. The problem was the rocket that they used was pretty much an intercontinental ballistic missile. So this scared the crap out of Americans. Okay, we feared this. On that fear alone, NASA was started and initiated by John F. Kennedy, the then current president.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
So that was John F. Kennedy, obviously starting what's called now as the Apollo missions, which at the time was the most expensive United States government project ever. At the time, it was $20 billion in 1960. Adjusted for inflation today, that's $200 billion, okay? The Manhattan Project, in retrospect, when you account for inflation today, only costs $26 billion, so to give you an idea. As you know, we landed on the moon in 1969 with the Apollo 11 mission, and at the time we expected to be on Mars in 10 years. But when people think about it, they don't realize that it wasn't just NASA. This was a cultural phenomenon. Everyone wanted to be involved. There was 36,000 contractors in 1960. By 1965, there was 376,000 contractors. Some of the bigger companies that were involved were Boeing, Douglas, and IBM, and each of them had over 250 subcontractors. So like I was saying, this really galvanized the nation. Everyone wanted to be involved in this phenomenon, this cultural shift. We reaped all the economical benefits because everyone was concerned about the world of tomorrow. Even people that weren't working on rockets wanted to know about the kitchen of tomorrow, the home of tomorrow. There was Futureland. In Disney World, there was the world of tomorrow. There was the World's Fair. Everything about this increased. STEM degrees increased. Everyone was more interested in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Heroes were made. These people came home, these astronauts came home, and they were heroes. And how did we do it? We did it with money. So you can see here, in 1965, at the highest peak, NASA's budget represented 4% of the budget. Today, it's half of a penny. Okay, half of the United States federal budget, a penny. Half of a penny is dedicated to NASA. We were the first to go on the moon, and now we can't even send our own astronauts into space. We're actually the only country in the world that sent up manned space flights that can't afford to send their own astronauts into space anymore. NASA's budget this year is at the 3rd lowest it's ever been. The first 2 on that list were the 2 years that it started. So now we're at the 3rd lowest year ever. And how many people have seen this picture before? This was the first picture from NASA that they took from the moon. And to say that we didn't have a cultural shift at that time, it's crazy. In this year, while we're now in the Vietnam War in 1970, so many things happened from this picture. In 1970, Earth Day started. The Environmental Protection Agency was started in 1970. Doctors Without Borders was started in 1971. Where did they get that line? This was the first time that anyone, this was the first time that anyone had ever seen the world without a map maker behind it. So as Neil deGrasse Tyson said, we are mortgaging our future and have stopped dreaming. Tomorrow is gone. So what he's implying is that we are not moving forward. We're not dreaming anymore. So when you look at $850 billion from Wall Street bailout, that's what could have been spent in the entire 50-year running history of NASA so far. We need more money. It's politically skewed. Some more wasted money, $41 billion on oil subsidies in the last year. People are now, private investors are now recognizing this as a decrease in STEM degrees and taking their own initiatives to make sure that we're advancing. $25 million was spent on Spaceship One, and that was in 2004. And some of the biggest investors are the top technology industries, or the technology industry players. Paul Allen, Larry Page, the founders and CEOs of Google, Microsoft. Richard Branson also bought Virgin Galactic. So what if we increased it to 1 penny? You know, what could we do? That would be enough money to go back to Mars with people, or to Mars for the first time, back to the moon, and exploring asteroids, you know, the galaxy. So that's what Penny for NASA is all about. We're all about lobbying for more money and to get everyone initiated and to get excited about space again, so that you contact your congressional leaders, your constituents, and get them excited about diverting funding to NASA, because we do have the money. It is there. You know, we're just politically spending it wrong. You know, to ask for 1% of the federal budget isn't a lot. So donate. You can volunteer like I am to give this speech today, or you can send a letter to Congress. And so I'll close with, you know, is the NASA experience and the universe to you worth 1 penny? Are we really willing to let that go?